Welcome everybody. We've got the apologies. We note, unusually actually, to be fair, that the attendance here is always terrific. But we do have apologies from 3 of our non-executive directors today, from Mohammed, from Barry, and from John Prashad. And Laura Parsons also gives an apology, and thanks to Jackie and Katie for stepping in and supporting the meeting. I do know that Mark Holloway may just join us later, and I recognise that he's got some important business regarding our catering arrangements that quite rightly deserve his attention right now. But again, he had the courtesy to inform me that he may just be late and coming in. So that's the situation. Thank you otherwise to everybody for such a strong attendance. Indeed, all executive director colleagues are here, so thank you for that. Is there anything else I should note regarding who's here and who isn't? Have I missed anything? Yes, that's fine, thank you. Yeah, so non-executive children has just advised me she's got 3 o'clock commitment that she needs to be away for. So that afterwards we'll be moving on there. That's fine. Okay, thank you everybody. Just orientate the meeting, remind you of the agenda. After the business reports, we'll take the people, of course, which includes this time a nursing and midwifery staffing review. We'll take our finance and performance matters. There are some important matters to discuss there, of course, in the appendices. In quality and patient safety matters, some crucial matters regarding maternity and neonatal, of course, and maternity plan, and indeed the CQC updates. There's quite a lot that our Chief Nurse Karen will be bringing us through there. We'll consider our partnerships work, audit and assurance matters, and governance matters. And again, there's some matters for approval in there, including our own constitution and the membership plan. Knowing what the agenda is, does anybody bring any other items for business, please? No, we can get through that. We'll have done what we need to do. So not yet. If they arise during the course of the meeting, of course, just advise me and I'll make time for those. And knowing what the agenda is, are there any particular declarations of interest that we should note, please, relevant to the agenda items? Again, none stated. And if they arise during the course of the meeting, then that's great. We can get into that. Okay, let's begin then with the best part of the board meeting. Actually hearing from people on the front line who are delivering the services for us and who we are trying to support, but recognise that it's them that are picking up what needs to be done. We're going to hear from our surgery team, and I'll turn to Saj as our executive in charge of this particular area, our Chief Operating Officer. Perhaps ask you to invite colleagues that are with us, Saj, and welcome colleagues. And as a board of directors, we genuinely do want to support you in the best way we can. You've got the decision makers of the trust here, so do tell us everything we need to know. What and all, as we might say, we welcome that. Yeah.
Thank you, Max. So it's an absolute pleasure introducing to you James Halstead, who's a general surgeon, but also Deputy Medical Director of Ops, so works very closely with myself as the senior team in operations, and Sue Craven, who's one of our matrons here. Both of them have got a wealth of experience. In fact, I've learned this morning that Sue's been with us since 1999 as one of our nursing colleagues, and James actually started in the hospital in 2006. So what you will get to hear about today is in particular the acute surgical unit, and many colleagues, particularly during the period of time of the development of Ward 2 and 5, visited the ward whilst it was undergoing its transformation. So I think the story you'll hear from James and Sue today is a bit of a background as to why there was a need to transform the service. And as a result of that investment and the new model of working, the impact that that's having. So without further ado, if that's okay, I'll pass over to James and Sue to take us through the presentation.
Thank you very much, Sash. Welcome.
Thank you. Morning, board. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you this morning. I always like being back in this room. It was where I was appointed in 2008, so fond memories. Our presentation this morning was drawn together also with the help of Ron Guest, our Senior General Manager in the CSU, and we have James Bowler from Performance also with us today. So I'll take the first slide, please, Katie. So we used to do our acute surgery through the whole of Ward 20 and part of Ward 21. So Ward 21 was in part acute and in part elective. That was not an ideal situation and also does, to some extent, make the subsequent data analysis a little bit challenging. But those two wards were several decades old. They were quite a limited footprint size-wise, and we were increasingly, as we moved into the modern world, facing quite significant privacy issues, patients having reasonably or fairly intimate examinations through a curtain, etc. It was just, we were facing an increasing patient volume as the population expands and time goes by, so the unit was just becoming progressively less fit for purpose. Obviously, the pandemic arrived, and that provided an absolute requirement really for us to separate our ultra green elective work from the acute green work, and that therefore obviously compromised the utility of Ward 21. We also needed increased side rooms, infection control issues, issues of privacy, issues of dignity for those facing the end of the life, etc. So that was the background to the ask really for the development of the new ASU. And whilst it would have been ideal for us to just have carte blanche to develop our ASU within a new hospital, there were some limitations because the development of the project obviously had to conform to the space that we were allocated. And that space was Ward 2, which for most of recent history was paediatric surgery, and Ward 5, which was a day case facility for us. The team that was drawn together to oversee the development of the acute surgical unit, I have to say it worked really well actually. It was a real shining example of public-private partnership really. It was coordinated in large part by Joe Stedman, who's one of your DADMs now, who was matron then, the architects, the estates department were great, the builders, some experts and contractors around issues like asbestos. And of course, it wouldn't have been possible without you, the board, actioning us taking this step. So next slide, please. This is the ward on the left after all the previous infrastructure was taken out, the asbestos was removed, and you can see the huge steels running down the length of the ward that were necessary to support the pods that you see on the right. And there's 15 of those. You can see already it was transformational in terms of the privacy in which we can examine our patients that come in. The design occurred over the course of about 6 or 8 months, as you can see from those dates there, and the build took about a year, and we opened on the 6th of February last year. Comparing numbers is a little bit difficult because, as I said earlier, it depends what proportion of Ward 21 you assign to the elective work. Adding 20 and 21 together and comparing with the new unit, we lost 11 beds, but we tripled the number of side rooms. I suspect if you allocated any reasonable number to the elective work that was done on 21, really it's probably a loss of a comparable number of beds really in terms of the size of the new unit versus the old. We'll take the next slide, please. This shows the data for the year prior to our opening and the data of the first year. And it shows that the number of admissions has gone up ever so slightly. It's really proportionally, it's quite a significant increase, really, it's a 10% increase. And the number of discharges has increased as well. It's important to factor in our thinking about the success of the ASU, the fact that we're dealing with a considerably smaller downstream bed base. So we used to put most of our downstream patients through 8 and 11, and now they go through a single ward, which is Ward 19. So in spite of that challenge, we've still been able to deal with an increased number of admissions, maintain or even increase the number of discharges from that ward without overloading 19, all against the backdrop of slowly increasing patient numbers. And, you know, we like to think in surgery that that has helped with all the issues that we face across the rest of the firmament, the issues in ED, the issues in primary care. It's improved patient flow, and I think quality of experience too. There's certainly been excellent co-working with our fellow specialties, and within the acute surgical unit, they are mostly general surgery, urology, and vascular surgery. We've been able to use the ASU to harness a number of new directives, and I'll try and take you through those in the time that we have available today. But one of them has been the development of a procedure room, which we didn't have on the old unit. It's got a reasonably sophisticated light for operating, it's spacious, and some of the more simple procedures that would require the trip to theatre with the delays and resource that implies, we're now able to do some of those through a procedure room. It's cheaper, just as good, and can occur in a much more timely fashion. Next slide, please. As an example of the sorts of initiatives that the new unit has enabled us to bring to fruition, these numbers relate to laparoscopic cholecystectomy. So A is acute and E is elective. The top 3 rows pertain to what was happening for the 6 months immediately prior to the pandemic, and the bottom 3 rows to the most recent 6 months for which we have data. And you can see there that prior to the pandemic, we really weren't doing any acute laparoscopic cholecystectomies at all. And we were huge national outliers in that regard. So now, in the new unit, with our increased access to theatres, the development of the NC-POD theatre lists, which all occurred really over the last 2 or 3 years through the pandemic, we're now able to do a reasonable number of monthly acute cholecystectomies, which has brought us back into line really with where other institutions with which we like to compare ourselves were. The number of elective cases has fallen off. That's clear for all of us to see, and that reflects, you know, the many challenges that we face, and that proportionate decrease would probably be fairly typical across most elective surgical specialties, and obviously we're doing our best to recover that position. So the NC-POD theatre, laparoscopic cholecystectomies, the introduction of the hot clinic is another mechanism or capability that the new ASU supports. We have a wonderful clinic room on the unit, supported by Matron Craven's team. Initially, it was immediately pretty busy, but it's now getting busier and busier, and we're channeling about 200 cases per month through the hot clinic. And not all of these would have stayed in hospital previously, but some of them would. And those that didn't might have waited several weeks or even months to get back to be seen in an ordinary clinic. So they now come back, usually within either days or at most a week or 2, back to the hot clinic and have their management moved forward. Complaints numbers, I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch to suggest that those annual complaints figures are on the way down. It's not a huge amount of data, but you know, they're not going up, and arguably we can keep that path, and we'll be demonstrating the fact that we're doing a reasonable job. Like many bits of the NHS, or perhaps just in English in general, we're difficult to accept compliments, and our registration of compliments is poor. So that's something that we need to improve. One other area that has been revolutionised by the development of the new ASU is the amount of waiting time that patients face for abscess and appendectomies. I've already said some of the more simple abscesses are now being done through the procedure room. Some of them used to wait days at times. Appendectomies also sometimes used to wait days. Access to the NC pod theatres has meant that the acute theatres is somewhat decompressed, and we're able to get patients in a little bit more of a timely fashion. Proving it with data is a little bit challenging and is requiring something of a long-hand analysis, but the question has been asked of EI through James, and hopefully we'll be able to report back on that in due course. So, what are our conclusions? Well, we think that the unit is working well. There's some audit data there to suggest that it is, and there's no doubt that there have been significant practice developments that have occurred with the introduction of our new acute surgical unit. And they're listed there: the NC pod theatre, laparoscopic cholecystectomy, the waiting times for theatre, the hot clinic, and so on. And alongside this, it's improved the environment for the education and training of the junior doctors, nursing staff, allied healthcare professionals. The synergy with the general surgery virtual ward is also important, and that's obviously a hugely important thing for the trust now. It's clear that there's enormous potential for patients to be at home and still receive safe, timely, appropriate care. The virtual ward is the mechanism through which we're going to be able to achieve this, and general surgery were fairly early in the process of adopting the opportunities that the RI poses. And as time goes by, we will work ever more closely with the virtual ward team, and the numbers of patients going through that process is increasing as time goes by. We've got a great relationship with BDCT, helping us do the at-home components of what patients require, and that really is limitless in terms of its opportunity across most specialties. We will and have developed our relationships with the other specialties. It's busy out there, and we're full almost all of the time. But there are other surgical specialties that can hopefully avail themselves of the advantages that this unit provides. There obviously are wider challenges. You know, we're in the midst of a fairly profound crisis in terms of the timely and safe provision of healthcare in this country, and that's obviously makes it difficult for all of us to do our jobs. But I think this is an example, undoubtedly, of us moving in the right direction. We wanted to hear, Max, about what challenges remain. There are many, but if I could perhaps impress upon you one, it's the fact that the General Surgery Consultant Body was 9 in 2009, and only just gone up to 12 with an appointment last week. That's probably behind where we need to be, and so the next stage of improvement, I think, for general surgery will hopefully involve an expansion consultant workforce. That's all I wanted to trouble you with for the moment, but we're happy, James and Sue, to take any questions that you might have.
That's fabulous, James. Yeah, terrific people. Thank you. Very clear. Isn't it lovely to hear of organisational development that links with happy, healthy at home? Which, you know, clearly the team can see that, can't they, that those links and engagements need to be made. So, James, was there anything you want to bring our attention to before we open up for any questions or thoughts?
Some of the challenges we had when we first opened were the mixed sex, you know, the monitor bay was single sex, so we had to put another 3 monitors into the side room to create some more flexibility so that we didn't do the mixed sex breach. So we mitigated that. We also, from a flow perspective, opened the discharge lounge just to get patients moving through. So, yeah, so they're things that we've done since the challenges since we've opened.
Yeah, so they're great examples. So, so things you've adapted in order to get things working. Yeah, great. James, do you have any?
Nothing further to add, other than that, really, it's just nice to see, I suppose, that data turned into a nice human touch, and see how it actually materialises out on the real world. Well done, James.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. So shall we open up for any thoughts, questions? So John, Karen, yeah, Mel, Ray. So John, Karen, Mel, Ray. In that order, please.
Thanks, James. Really clear exposition. I understand it. I've walked around it, but I understand it better now, having heard that. Probably a question for Sue, actually, which is about the sort of the patient experience and the staff experience, some of which comes from being in a nice new environment. We all feel the cause, but actually the practical flow of patients through the area and the experience for staff in there. Can you just give us a little idea of how that feels?
Initially, we obviously had the issue that was linked to us not even there in the patient controls for a long period of time, which is why we looked at a discharge facility to get patients through. So we recognise we weren't providing the best patient experience there. For staff, it's a brand new unit, new facilities, it's a win for them. They really enjoy what they work.
So win-win, that's it.
Win-win.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And Karen, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Really great presentation. Thank you. Really good to see the improvement and the flow coming through as well. I'd take a 25% drop in complaints if I was you. But I was interested in what people complained about and whether it was wait times, and then that drop is attributed to the fact that you've got the flow working well and the unit as you want it to be.
So the PALs are mainly about communication. The staff still be there and it's about to work on the communication. The formal complaints are mainly the longest day patients, unfortunately, the ones that we passed away and want to.
And I've got a sneaky second question. So I'm really just in awe of you. Sticking around for 24 years is phenomenal, so congratulations.
We have a lot of Filipinos that have 20 years ago still on one.
Amazing. I was just going to ask you to describe the culture, because clearly it's a good culture if you're going to stick around for that long.
It's not when I was culture, there's no secret. Everybody, you can say what you want, there's no bitching you answers his back, it's taking you all that together.
Fantastic, thank you.
That's what you want, right?
Yeah. Thanks.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah. And Mel, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks both, great stuff. So, a couple of questions. Taking the point, James, about the consultant body, clearly we do need to grow that way, but we're kind of chasing the potential retirements coming up, aren't we?
We are.
So as fast as we recruit, we're going to lose people over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's a difficult one. What attracts people to Bradford are the kind of innovative things that we're doing. So I was fortunate enough to be on the interview panel last week for our new appointment. A fantastic candidate, really impressive candidate. And you know, that kind of question, why Bradford, when it's such a competitive area, speaks to all the kind of investment and the philosophy and the development of BRI. So that's really important, because part of the presentation they were asked to do was actually, how do you use technology to support innovation going into the future? So that kind of transition into BRI, use of telemedicine, and of course, the investment we've made in the robotics equipment is the hot topic, because everybody's kind of gearing up to use that. So that's a big attraction. So we clocked the consultant challenges, and it's all about getting those relationships with the trainees as they go through the process, and making them aware of and giving them the experience of the culture of the team, the ward environment, the unit, the theatre environment, and the organisation. That's our job as well, so that we become the most attractive proposition to them when they could essentially go anywhere.
Yeah.
Is really important. The second thing really was about the investment that kind of has come with the expectations around the RI nationally, and we've availed ourselves of that. We've managed to sort of protect that going forward, and John very ably has led on that from an executive point of view. But you alluded to the BDCT element, which is one way of constructing a VRI model, but equally, I'd be interested in understanding how we can work with our colleagues, and maybe it's a question for Karen, around how do we get to a point, do we get to a point where some of the nurses who work in the hospital actually then go out to see the patients at home? Because they're the ones who will have this sort of surgical expertise, won't they? That will enable us to develop a larger risk appetite for those patients that could be cared for outside. And I'd really like to see at least the conversation starting about how we develop a cadre of VRI clinicians who can work in both environments, so that the patients can be more complex that we manage at home eventually over time with the support of technology.
No, that's absolutely the plan with the DRI project. I don't want to leave you with the impression that it isn't. Ultimately, a hybrid approach with our own peripatetic regulatory staff and BDCTs would be ideal. I was impressed, stroke amazed by the immediacy and the positivity of the cooperation with BDCT.
Yeah.
It wasn't the usual serial meetings and obfuscation.
Well, the actor's gone now, that's it's working, isn't it?
Example of that. It was fantastic. They came straight to the party and they enabled us to get moving, and we will move towards the picture that you lay out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Karen, did you want to make a comment on that suggestion for next development?
I've just put a note down, surgical VRI, so I'm going to speak to my friend over the table and others. But yes, and the more rotational we can get across place, the better, because we've got lots of skills that we can learn off each other.
Yes.
Great. And Mel, thank you for picking up on the total number challenge.
Yeah.
And obviously, you said you blocked that. Karen, I'm sure there's people at the People Academy who'll have that in mind. I know that there are simple solutions there, but it's clear that it might help to grow it. So thank you. Thanks. Ray, would you like to come in, please? And I'll come back to you then, Karen, for the part. Ray.
Thanks, Matt. So I made a couple of notes. Some of these have been covered already, so I won't go into too much detail. But I hope you got a good feel for the department that surgery is, and in terms of how innovative it's been over a long period of time. But I'm just going to pick them up a little bit more, actually. So I've had the pleasure of working with most of the surgeons, I think, and the nursing staff on the wards over a long time, so 25 years in my case. And I think throughout the whole of that time, they've really been one of the shining lights, I think, in the organisation. They've been at the forefront of every sort of development in technology and patient care within their specialties, I think. So I remember laparoscopic surgery starting off, and we were really one of the leading national centres of laparoscopic surgery at the time, and enhanced recovery and everything that came with that, short hospital stays and better patient experience and outcome. Virtual services, James has mentioned, robotic surgery now, again, we're at the forefront of that. And we've always had a department which is forward-thinking, which is supportive of each other, and extremely collaborative with all other departments in the hospital. So I think it's a fantastic department. We've always been very good at attracting staff, obviously to talk staff culture, and that's right throughout all the care staff within the specialty. It is right, there's a challenge coming in terms of the need to expand the department and also replace those retiring, I think in the next 5, probably less than 5 years, 3, 4 years, we've probably got 4 senior consultants who are likely to retire within a short space of time. So we do need to find a way to support the continued success of the department. So fantastic department. I think, James mentioned about the opportunity that's been taken with the MC pod list to do more acute lap choles, and I think just for the board, it's probably worth pointing out that traditionally you come in with acute cholecystitis, you go home, and then you might come in 2 more times, 3 more times before you eventually get your elective lap chole at a later date. Doing it at the time when you first come in stops all those subsequent admissions. So it's a great thing to be able to do. So fantastic, and the build really does feel different when you walk on there now. It just feels very modern, and couldn't be further away from what it used to feel like on Ward 5. When it was obviously an old Nightingale setup really. So just one question at the end of all that sort of bigging up praise.
Here's the box.
It's not that kind of question. So one thing you do hear about, particularly on safety bubble for every morning, is, and I completely recognise why, and this is in no way a criticism, it's like, how can we help you to solve this? You've mentioned the downstream bed rates being significantly reduced, so we know that. We still regularly have patients, unfortunately, who end up having to wait longer on a trolley on Ward 5, sorry, than we would like. You can't get beds in there, as you know. So that's not great for experience. It's not what any of us want, certainly not what you want to know. But is there something we could do to try and improve that, accepting that we've got constrained bed days?
I think the single easiest answer to that is the virtual ward. Obviously, the development of a new ward, thin air with nurses and funding would be ideal, but that's not hugely realistic in the current climate. The virtual ward really is, and I hope, obviously I'm biased because I'm inside of that project, but I do think that could be and should be our route to decompressing the inpatient capacity issues that we have across many specialties. Because if you look dispassionately at what patients actually stay in hospital for, the reasons are various and sometimes softer end of the spectrum. So if we can, over the next, say, 12 months, get that project really moving, and there are initial signs that that is occurring, then it should grow faster than the increase in our demand. And hopefully, we're, fingers crossed, in a phase now where things aren't changing quite as ridiculously dynamically as they have been over the last 2 or 3 years. So hopefully those two things together should enable us to run the requirement through the infrastructure that we have and lessen the situation which, you're right, Ray, having patients on trolleys for a prolonged period of time, elderly, ill, is not ideal. That would be the route, as I perceive it, really, to hopefully lessening that problem.
Yeah, can I just ask colleagues of the board, do we all fully endorse the principle of in-house colleagues providing services outside of these walls? We do, don't we? I think. I know it's easier said than done sometimes, but we endorse that, don't we? Support it. I think it's terrific to see that sort of development working, and the point making about it, that stops people waiting longer as well.
It makes sense, doesn't it, from a continuity of care point of view? And improve that sort of patient experience around. Just with that, I think you acknowledged that we're not good at capturing compliments, are we? And
It's a work in progress.
yeah, but I think everything we've heard this morning tells us that we've made huge inroads in terms of improving patient experience. So thank you.
I was looking to make sure there wasn't an elephant in the room in terms of that idea though you first raised it. I love the idea, and just want to say, is there a particular hurdle or challenge anyway?
Max, I just wanted to call out the job enrichment element of that care at home as well. So when somebody's been here 24 years, going out into the community and doing what you do is a different angle to what you've been used to. So I think there's a real job enrichment piece here as well.
Great point, yeah. Are you on this point?
Well, just exactly that. To echo Mel's point, the precedent is already there with the Care of the Elderly Virtual Ward, where people employed by this organisation go out and work in the community. And when we started with VRI, we were keen to see if we could grow out from Care of the Elderly. For reasons we don't need to get into today, that hasn't quite been possible. The cooperation with the Care Trust has given us an opportunity to take a shortcut, but Mel is 100% right. The long-term answer to this is actually to grow our own with the Care Trust. It's not competition, actually a single badgeless workforce, as Karen would say, where you get the opportunity to rotate, you get the diversity, you get the experience, and actually it's a great place to come and work because you can do community, you can do acute, you can do a bit of everything.
Great to hear. Paul, please, thank you.
Sorry, Karen, you were next in the rotation, but.
I'm happy either way, Paul.
So I'm going to flip quite explicitly to a compliment because 2 weeks ago today, a member of my household was one of your statistics. And in terms of the experience, both in the privacy and dignity element of it, in the communication element of it, in the seamless service element of it, it was all absolutely top class. And it wasn't top class because I walked in ahead of them. It was top class because that's the service that we provide in that environment. So I can't compliment the service enough in that context. Fahim and I were walking over. The other thing it does is it gives you that visceral sense of what the level of pain, discomfort, it doesn't have to be a family member, but that's what our patients are. Every one of those days of excess weight is an impact on a household, on parenting, on contribution to the workforce, on a wide sense of a set of things. So I can only say that our experience, because again, it is an interesting thing when you're a carer for a period in this context, was absolutely top notch. And it isn't a bot, my sort of PS, but that interesting for me was that, again, very specifically, someone presented who also had other procedures in the past where I think one of the interesting things was, from our perspective, was in terms of aftercare and the life that you were going to live post-surgery, was there a way in which we could get more information across to that patient in that critical moment, so that they understand what it's going to feel like a week later. Inpatient professionals, despite best endeavours, want to get back much quicker, I suspect, than they should healthily try and get back into the workforce. So giving them a real sense of this is what 2 weeks out might look like, this is what 6 weeks out might look like, that sort of narrative around the aftercare was the only element where we did a little bit of research ourselves and understand how to manage it. But in the context of the actual episode, first class.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much. Karen, final comments.
I'll be as brief as I can. 2 comments and a challenge, which should also wrap some of the things that we've talked about. So Paul Southern said to me a couple of years ago, he said, the thing is, Karen, if you work in Bradford, you work in Bradford because you really, really care about the people of Bradford. And actually we're attractive because we've got really good clinical teams. And I think you show that in spades. So thank you. Second point is, we're talking about complaints. So you put your complaints into it. I see every complaint that comes through the organisation. So they used to be in 3 buckets, and Sue said, waiting times, hugely complex ones. And then the other bit, which is the ones we're not seeing anymore, was why was I starved and then the operation was cancelled, and then I was starved again and then the operation was cancelled. Why was I kept waiting all day to be seen? So those complaints have gone now, and that's excellent, and that's a real link between, the estates looking differently at the workforce and providing a different model with the hot clinics, the NC pod list, a different environment that's had a really positive impact on not just elective figures but patient experience. Third point is a challenge. So you talked about a lot of your Paul's issues around communication. Paul just made a beautiful point then as well that also was a segue into that. And remember when we started setting up the concept of the new wards, I put a challenge out and said, what can we do about information? How can we make more accessible information? How can we use more QR codes? How can we standardise communication and education for patients? And I think that's the next bit of the challenge, to enhance that patient experience and to stop that noise that you get, because you need other ways of getting messages across. If people unfortunately haven't got the time to sit down and give people the time that they need, if they can't make that time, we need to think of a different way, and that's where technology can come in. So that's my challenge back to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's one of the 5 streams of VRI patient education, and you're dead right. A quick scan of QR code and access what life's supposed to look like after having your appendix removed. Stitching time, exactly.
That very nicely brought it back to the first point, really, the foundation, the first point, John, that you raised about what's it like for the patient. So, well said, Karen, yeah. Ray, please.
Just on that last point about information, I think there's a real opportunity coming up. So, and Paul knows far more about this than me, but the electronic consent project that we're working on, obviously, that's the direction of travel now. It's something we need to move away from paper. You can sign your Amazon delivery on a little tablet, so why can't we do it in hospital? We absolutely can. But it really gives us the opportunity to link lots of information to that consent process. So not just about the operation itself and what you're consenting for and the risk benefits, alternatives, etc., but also the aftercare. So there's a real opportunity to link all sorts of things in that. So the patient knows even before they have the procedure what we want and rely on 2 and 3, etc. So there's a real opportunity coming in next year.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah.
Just on that, I haven't had the chance to talk to John about this. I had a chat with Christos, who is in particular leading on the patient education bit of VRI, and he kind of showed me some of the stuff which is amazing, and I know they're coming to the next board development session. I'm not sure whether, Matt, if you thought, because it blew me away that the stuff that Christos was doing, and I'm not sure that's planned to go, but if it could somehow expand the time available, perhaps for the board development, and we could incorporate that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, initially it was going to be front and centre. I think it's now a balance between patient education, inpatient, which is VW visual, and outpatients, which is a lot of the remote stuff. It will be the holy trinity. Yes.
Because it's really great stuff.
Yeah.
It's QR code and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally
Yeah.
been well said. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Yeah. The status was,
Just really wanted to say thank you to the team, James and Sue and colleagues in the background. I think what that's just highlighted to us how one development actually has such big consequences and impact for us in terms of it's not just an estates programme, it's much wider than that. And apart from all of the good work, the changes that you've seen demonstrated, the next big challenge for us as well as VRI is about the pathways from accident emergency for the acute surgical patients coming, and the things we're thinking around in terms of that closed A&E model, PD model, whereby actually from initial streaming of patients, being able to divert patients up to the acute surgical unit who would be better served there. So avoiding long waits in A&E, straight up to the acute surgical unit, front end consultant presence, seen by the specialty, and then management plans put in place. So really quite transformative. So I'm hoping what you've seen and what we'll be able to demonstrate is from being a service that was in the background to what some of the other services in the country were developing and were envious of those. Actually, I think what we'll see is many services looking inwards to Bradford now and saying, hang on, how have they managed to do this? And all of those things that colleagues have highlighted, whether that be robotic surgery, whether that be the facilities we've got or the pathways we've got from A&E, will help us get to that position. So massive thank you to the team that are here, but also the wider team that really contributed to making this a reality.
Thanks very much, Sash. Yeah. James, there was just one very quick question to the chair, which was about that 10% increase, 17.1 to 18.8. Did that refer to the number of patients or a particular?
That would be our idea. So the year before we moved to the year to now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Average number of admissions per day.
So,
It's per day. Yes, it didn't go you said it on the slides, so I just wanted to be absolutely sure about that.
Admissions per day, so we'll see a far greater number.
Yeah.
Average 80.
10% up daily is superb, isn't it? Yeah, great stuff, great. Well, that's the best part of the board meeting. It goes on downhill from here. No, seriously, it's been brilliant to hear from you. I hope you're assured by the support we want to give and try to encourage, and we do it, an honest and open discussion. We want to hear what the challenges are, what the next steps are. We picked up on consultant growth, for example. I love hearing so about the adaptations as the project's gone along. That's good project management, of course it is. When you think about discharge labs, when you think about mixed-sex accommodation, etc. Great example. So, terrific. Thank you so much indeed. The links to BRI, Happy Healthy at Home as well, really strong. And that's the way to take us forward. So I think you're at the cutting edge of what we're doing. And I want to thank you again for all directors. Terrific, great insight for us and helps us make better decisions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good day, guys. Thank you too. Now, I think we do have John with us as well. John Pasha, can you hear okay? Hopefully so. I can see you are linked in, John, so that's great. And Julie, I do know you're here. Let me keep that just occasionally looking to see if there's a hand raised. And I can see the one, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm here, Max, thanks.
Oh, very good, John, that's great. That's great. I'm glad you can hear okay. Welcome, thanks for joining us. Okay. So that was great. Obviously, the team are away. We feel we got to the key points we wanted to there and heard about the next steps, etc. Yeah. So, yeah, really, as always, actually, really good session. Thanks, everybody. Let's move into section 2 then and deal with the minutes of our meeting on the 9th of March, the open board meeting. Are there any matters of inaccuracy or amendment, please, that we should note? Do we accept those as a true record of the meeting? It would appear so. Thanks, everybody. And for matters arising there, unless anybody wants to tell me anything different, I've got the 3 actions here that shown, I think, are all on the way. So our chief nurse helpfully proposed a briefing session is organised for governors and non-execs about communication with patients and the improvement of that. Nice to see such a patient experience ethos here. Date to be arranged. I'm not sure that's moved on particularly. Is it still getting sorted? Yeah, that's fine. Okay. The second of those are the health inequalities and waiting list analysis that I'm delighted to see. Again, Canada's chief nurse endorsed the work and suggested that an expansion of this to look at other areas. We said that board development, which we're piling on a little bit, aren't we? But plenty to do. I would welcome that as well. The suggestion is that we should look at other areas that we can reasonably develop that analysis. And let's be right, that's us taking a hard look, isn't it, at waiting lists and how they might affect particular parts of our communities. And that's good stuff. So good suggestion, and again, just to be confirmed as we go through the different things we can talk about in development. And then finally, we have our looking after our people. I've noted that the improvement of the results compared to last year's performance against the national context, and I asked if some analysis can be developed in relation to the understanding of our own staff in relation to the core 20 cohort. Right. I suspect that's the item at 9. That's item 9 today.
That one specifically will be dealt with in July.
Okay.
Will be brought to the board.
Okay, so I know it was saying that there, and I wondered if we brought that forward. That's fine, we'll pick up on that in July about the core 20 cohort. Thank you. Are colleagues content that the matters arising are being managed properly? Yeah, it would be so. Thanks, everybody. We'll move to section 3, the business reports, and there's the chairman's report there. I'm going to propose that we take that as read, please. You can see it's heavily focused on the work with our governors. If it has 3 things to bring to your attention quickly, it would be that it's wonderful to re-welcome David Wilmhurst as our Trust Vice Chair, and of course Vice Chair in the governors, and Fazana Khan as our new, Dr. Fazana Khan, of course, as our new staff governor, who will be a terrific addition to the team and the expertise that she can bring. And some really good work going on in terms of retaining and improving our engagement with governors across the 3 foundation trusts in our area. And we intend, and we've led this, to be fair, but we intend to bring governors together from the Care Trust, from Airedale, and of course from ourselves, with a view to making sure that they see the partnership angle. I know John is entirely behind that work and with a view to increasing visibility and seeing how governors might help stewardship of us in relation to the partnership agenda and beyond the walls, which has been the theme this morning already, hasn't it? So that's the three things I bring to your attention. Is that okay? Content with that? Shall we turn to Mel for the report from the Chief Executive? The written report has been received, but Mel, what the floor with you, what would you like to bring to attention?
Thank you, Chair. So taking the report as read, there are just a few items that I would wish to highlight and make addition to. So clearly colleagues will be aware that we had the most prolonged period of industrial action by the Royal College of Nursing over the bank holiday weekend. An enormous amount of planning went into that so that we could be assured going into that strike period that the patients already in our care, those inpatients who were in bed at the beginning of the strike, could be cared for safely and appropriately. And I think we did a great job of doing that. And many thanks to all the operational teams and indeed the volunteers and our temporary staffing cadre who came forward to ensure that that would happen. But of course, there are consequences. Those patients who are waiting to get into our beds and waiting to have procedures done and interventions, etc., unfortunately have been impacted. So I just wanted to quantify that. So when we've done the analysis over that period, there were 148 inpatient episodes that were cancelled, 150 day case, 905 new appointments, and 4,237 follow-up appointments. So it's easy to get through the strike period and say, well, we passed without incident, people remain safe, but there is a hidden risk, of course, in all of those patients who would have had something done to them, and we weren't able to offer that. Of course, we prioritised those patients with the most pressing clinical needs and made sure that those services were maintained, but those are the consequences of those patients. Just wanted to highlight, Chair, really good news in that we've secured additional capital investment on what is already a huge capital programme for this year that enables us to create a purpose-built endoscopy unit. This is really great news. It will take a couple of years for that to come to fruition, but that investment is secured, and we will begin the process of planning that particular capital development in conjunction with everything else that is planned to happen, including, of course, our flagship day case unit at St Luke's, which is progressing. And then the second area I wanted to highlight was just to make board members aware of the invitation to attend the Thrive Leadership Conference, which is taking place on the 6th of June at the Life Centre in Bradford. This is our second big flagship event in terms of our leadership development, and I encourage as many people as are able to attend that. And just one more point really that has arisen since the report was written is that we've received, all chief exec in the NHS have received a letter from members of the NHS board to highlight the need to engage some of our staff in conversations about the future of the NHS, where we've been, where we are currently, and where we might be in the future. And this is aligned to the 75th anniversary of the NHS, which happens on the 5th of July. So everybody under the leadership of the NHS Assembly and a small group of individuals from that, and leading a national listening and engagement event, of which we will play a part. And as it actually happens that much of this is going to take place whilst I'm on leave, John's stepped into the frame and is going to lead on that for us, to ask ourselves some very structured questions. It's a short listening exercise because there isn't an awful lot of time to really reflect on the successes, the challenges, and what the future might hold for the NHS. So I think John may reference it in his report later on, but we are enacting those requests on behalf of the NHS Assembly. Rob, actually, as our West Yorkshire lead, is a member of the Assembly, and he's offered to be part of a small group. So there's a definite West Yorkshire connection in there as well for us.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yeah, I was pleased now to know that you've included in the report the development of New Vision Bradford Drug and Alcohol Service. And I hope that clearly does mean that you're cited on it and we're looking at ways we can support that. The bridge projects are long-standing people, so assuming they're the same kind of people that have been there for a long time. They do have the expertise, so I'm very pleased to know that that's in your report. Thank you. Yeah. Colleagues, an opportunity to apprise yourself of anything that Chief Executive may be aware of? No? No further questions? Can I, from the Chair, endorse our appreciation as a board for executive efforts during the course of the continuing strike periods? That goes beyond executives, I know, but we're sitting here as a board of directors and need to be sure that you're on it and you've gripped it, and you clearly have. So I do want to express the thanks of all the board to executive colleagues for everything that's been done and for the updates that you've given me. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Nothing further, colleagues? Well, okay. Non-execs, okay? Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so we move on to people then. So, of course, we have Karen with us, and we're able to take the report regarding the March and April meetings. Also includes, of course, the annual report and corporate strategy stuff. So, Karen, shall I turn to you, please?
Yeah, thank you. I'll just pull out a couple of points on each month, Max, if that's okay.
Of course,
yeah. So in March, there was a huge focus on people and engagement. So the survey results were out, and we discussed the staff survey results, the action plan, and took assurance from that, given the operational pressures at the time the survey was open. So there were 8 out of 9 people promised themes that were above average and 1 that was average overall. And I won't go through it because I know Fahim's going to talk about the NHS People survey next on the agenda. There was a big focus on civility and respect as well. So that work continues with a firmly established programme board and an advisory panel. A civility in the workplace development session for all staff's been piloted as well with the advisory panel and with some of the networks. And there's a civility and trauma session that's been developed for ED colleagues supported by the staff psychology service as well. There is a live event in May, so this month, and that's going to offer managers specific support around tackling incivility. And there's a civility toolkit as well that's been approved, covering 3 main areas that was due to be launched in April. And that is covering experiencing incivility, witnessing incivility, or being accused of incivility. So it covers the whole 360 area of that. So there's tools, tips, resources to support such situations as well. And then on a wider scale, the bullying and harassment policy is under review, and the staff advocacy service is also under review by the EDI team. And there's lots of monitoring going on around key measures to understand the impact that civility work has had as well. We talked before here, Max, about assessing and monitoring organisational culture. So there's a big discussion in March about that as well. Kat shared a paper defining organisational culture for everybody and the qualitative and quantitative methods used to assess that as well. And as many of us will know, it's really difficult to just use one single measure. There isn't one. It's a combination of different measures. Things like values and how we as leaders and the exec, right through to people on the front line, espouse the values, live and breathe those values. There are measures around the emotional connection that people have about work, so it's measured as attachment in the people survey. There are leadership, goal alignment, retention, positivity, attendance, resilience, all those kind of things will give you a measure of culture. And there's a huge correlation between culture and engagement. So in my words, I would say culture drives engagement, drives positive business outcomes. So the culture is driving that engagement. And again, we're going to come on and talk about engagement on the agenda, but there has been some improvements in that engagement survey as well. So that would describe the culture as improving. And obviously, that's why I asked Sue that question. She's been here a long time.
The Academy team are well set.
Hugely, yeah. And I have spent quite a lot of time with Kat outside of meetings, Max, just how I would measure culture, for example, and engagement, and just given an outside view and a private sector view on some of that as well. So I think there was a lot of reassurance around measuring organisational culture in the People Academy. And lastly, on March as well, and on this subject actually, the Trust is considering joining the NHS Culture and Leadership Programme, and that's aiming to help NHS organisations and other care organisations to develop a culture that enables and sustains continuously improving safe, high quality, compassionate and inclusive care. So there's 35 NHS organisations already working on that, and they've implemented the outputs, and they've seen improvements to their CQC ratings, retention and engagement as well.
Yes.
I'll move on to excuse me, April really quickly, and there was a big focus on workforce and learning. So we did discuss the high and increasing level of agency use in estates and facilities. There's a very challenging question from Sugra in the session, but Mark responded incredibly well and gave a great, robust update. So Band 2 positions, as Mark explained, cover food security, porters, cleaning services, and there's been enhanced services throughout COVID that continue, particularly around enhanced cleaning, rapid response cleaning team, and then increased security as well for the maternity wing. And Mark explained that those resource levels and mitigations were going to be presented to the executive team shortly after the meeting. We did get an update as well on nursing and midwifery vacancies, so 236 at Band 5, nursing, 168 Band 2, healthcare support workers. But what we did take assurance from was the leaver rate dropping continuously now, and recruitment is improving, and more open days and international recruitment campaigns are on the go as well. Workforce Stability Index was shared. I've not seen that before. So that measures those in employment in the Trust at the start of the month and then still maintained at the end of that month. Was at 99.28%, which is phenomenal. But we did challenge that and challenged Fahim, because actually it's about the tenure and length of service and the experience levels as much as it's about those that are employed within the Trust. Very thorough discussion about the considerable actions taken by the Trust to mitigate industrial action. So we spent a lot of time talking about that, and Karen wasn't there because she was working on the action plan, but we got a very thorough update from Joe and the team across that. Obviously incredibly challenging across bank holiday weekend and no derogations in place. And then we celebrated the achievements of the education team. So we looked at the annual education report, and against the backdrop of significant staffing changes in the education team, they've delivered phenomenal improvements actually across all domains of the National Education and Training Survey results. They've achieved an accreditation, ASPE, and for those NEDs that were present, we did go and have a look around the simulation centre, but that is the Association of Simulated Practice in Healthcare accreditation. Been awarded a National Innovation Award. They've hosted 500 placements for students across the Actors One district as well, offered increased support to students and junior doctors who've seen increased workloads and financial pressures as well. And the team are now looking at a business and marketing strategy to understand any opportunities to bring income into the Trust as well, which is great, bearing in mind the financial challenges. And actually there was a special call out for on her leadership of the team and combined achievements that she's helped to drive. The People Academy annual report was also shared. I have it here. It's a lengthy document, and what we've tried to do is just drive activity and progress through that academy, and from learning and improvement around staff stories, looking after our people, staff engagement, feedback, addressing concerns, culture, freedom to speak up, EDI, kindness, stability, all those things. Then alongside assurance from the dashboards, the BAFs, the strategy and plans, a phenomenal amount of work. But I do need to ask whether or not the board determines that the academy has been effective and whether there's any further development work required.
Perfectly put. Thank you very much indeed, Karen. It's a really helpful summary of the meetings and the key issues. I'll start with any other non-executive directors in case that any wish to raise anything that is arising within our people work. If not, Fahim, is there anything you would like to add, please, to the work there?
So in terms of stability index, I think it's really important that actually we look at those that are the tenure that Karen's talked about, those that have started with us more recently, see that we are keeping people. So it's not just about recruiting more, but it's also about retention. And that's a key focus for us. So the next piece of work we will be doing is looking at that. When in terms of actually how, we talked earlier about colleagues who've been here for a long period of time. Sue already talked about joining within 1999. And I think for us, it's that longevity and ensuring that we're retaining those staff. So we'll be looking at some more work in the background around actually, are we keeping the new starters that are joining us? Are people leaving within the first 12 months? And if they are, then what's the learning for us and how do we support that? But that's the next piece of work that I think from a people academy perspective, that was really important for us.
Thank you. Over what period of time is 99.28% calculated?
So that's what the stability index looks at, those that were in post at the start of the month and those that were in post by the end of the month. So the next piece of work is to look at, well, actually those starters at the start of the month, how many of those were new starters and what's the stability index for the new starters really?
It's a snapshot of time, that it's at this moment. At the end of this month, how were we at this passing? Karen, were you going to add something?
I was just going to add, there are other measures that support it as well, Matt. So the retention numbers are the key to who, who's been here, what average length of service is, and how frequent it is that people leave. And Fahim and I have talked about measuring those that leave within a year. So that could be an alternative measure, and we're looking at some improvements to the dashboard to include that as well. So I think there are supportive measures, but Fahim's right, it is about us understanding of that stability index then. What's the experience level that sits underneath?
Yes, of course, yes. And excuse the lay question here, Fahim, but is a very high stability index a good thing?
Yes.
Does it reflect people that perhaps are happy in the work and want to stay? Yeah, that's your point, Cam, that there's more below it. Thank you.
Max, just to add, in terms of actually our retention levels, they've been consistently improving month on month for some time now. So in terms of retaining staff, it's what we're demonstrating is actually we are keeping or improving the number of staff that are actually choosing to stay here with us. So those figures have continuously improved for around a year now, I think. So the retention thing in terms of turnover, so the number of people that are leaving the organisation has consistently been dropping month on month.
That's really helpful. Thank you. That's really helpful. Great stuff. Okay, so is that a good point at which talking about our staff to perhaps move to item 9 and to warmly welcome Carly and Denny. Hello, nice to see you both. Fantastic to have you with us. And we're going to talk about the staff survey and what we've learned from that. I think we do have some slides over that. So we've got them ready to go. And ladies, the floor's with you. Great to have you with us. And I always say, you're here amongst those who want to support you to do the best you can in what you need to be done. So be honest with us and be open with us and let us know what you found, what could be better, what's going great, that sort of thing. Yeah? Well.
Max, can I just, whilst we get into this, I think we're one of 23 exemplar people promise sites across the country. And a lot of the work that's we've done around this staff survey and the results you will see are as a result of the really good work we've done through that being an exemplar people promise site. And Carly is our people promise manager, so a lot of the credit goes to Carly in terms of actually the work that we've done to help improve these results.
Thanks, Dave. I should of course have come to you first, so thank you for stepping in there, that's great. with yourselves, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Billy. Obviously, that's just right, that is obviously alongside the other schemes, so don't take on the credit by any stretch, well, take some.
No, thank you.
So what we want to do, we just want to give you a brief overview of the SAT survey results, but then have the opportunity for questions, because there's a lot of information provided here. So just want to make sure that there's an opportunity for you to ask us some questions. Thank you. I'm not sure it's okay. Thank you. So what this is showing, I won't read this out to you, but essentially I just wanted to include the national picture, which does reflect the challenging operational environment that we're in at the moment, coming out of COVID. And whilst we've seen a positive increase in our SAT survey results, we just thought it really important to highlight some of the areas of concern that have been seen both national and brackets, so I'm not sure what be of any surprise to you. So metrics across workload, staff wellbeing, positive increases since 2021. Results not consistent across national results and benefit as well. So for just to pick out a few of those there, so there's been an increase in those reporting that they often think about leaving their organisation. That's at a 5-year high. All measures relating to burnout remained high as well, and just under half of staff often are always feel worn out at the end of their shift. Sorry. So as Carly said, that was the national picture, and I know obviously our response rate was 10% down. However, when you look at the national picture, it is in line, and within the organisations around about, as you can see, we're not too lower than everybody else, but we have dropped. But we should really remember to celebrate actually that our results, while we were a lower percentage response rate, we scored higher on everything, so we had a better response on the questions, which was absolutely brilliant. And I think we should remember that. So I know we focus on over 10% lower, but actually everything shot through was great, especially like how I said that people promise. I think over, but one we scored higher. And I'm totally going off script. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No, you said
we were outside doing did an enigmatic power pose. I overshare. So as it said there, we had 2,365 colleagues respond to the survey, which, honest, yeah, that's disappointing, but still 2,365 bothered to do it. So it's like, how do we get everybody else to do it this year? And that's where we'll be calling on all of you, don't worry. I'll let you go next. So it's really difficult to see on this graph here, but essentially I'm talking through it. So the staff survey results have been aligned to the 2021, since 2021, the people promise themes, with the addition of staff engagement and morale at the end. And what this graph shows is that we've improved across all 9 areas, and we're now above the national average for all 9 areas, with the exception of We Are Safe and Healthy, which is just in line with the national average, although it's an increase in our 2021 results. We've also now received the analysis from NHS England, which has placed us as the 7th most improved scores in the country, and also the 2nd best improved out of the 23 people promise exemplar organisations as well. So really, really good improvements across the board for all things. And again, this is just a breakdown just to show you again each of the 9 themes, so the 7 people promise themes, and then staff engagement and morale. We can see that the trust score for 2021 is the one that's in the middle. Trust score 2022 is just to the left, and then the change we can see is a positive increase for each of those. And what you can see is an increase. I won't go through each of those. Okay, so again, this is really difficult to see on the screen, but essentially what this shows is all of the 23 people promise exemplar organisations. Apologies, Max.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I won't do it actually.
So you can see all the 23 people promise exemplar organisations, and just to the right, you can see the exemplar average is showing it at 0 and minus 0.05 decline in change in engagement scores, which is in line with the national average. But you can see here Bradford is the 2nd, which is showing an increase of 0.11,
So we've been applauded from that nationally. We've actually received a human rights notice yesterday after that Emma Wilkinson Bryce, Chief People Officer for NHS England, would like to come and have a visit and see how we're doing. So I'll be in touch with a few of you, I'm sure. So yeah, and we're also being asked from other organisations as well how we're achieving this goals. Place teaching hospitals and stuff. I was quite proud of that one. Then when we come down, asking how we see this.
We'll all do that power thing when Anne comes in. That's good news, thank you.
Okay, so obviously we've done really well, and there's been a lot of hard work going on this year. And as you can see, the priority areas that we've been working on, there are some red ones about the speaking out, feeling safe to raise concerns. However, we're still higher than the national average on that. So while we've shown a decrease as a trust, we are still higher than the national average, which is a positive to take on that. But we want to work on that this next time. So what can we do? Next slide. Sorry. And then you can see, again, some marked increases, which is great. So people looking forward to coming to work. We've had an increase. With every firm my organisation has placed where we have decreased. However, I can tell you off the press, the last pulse that we've just done in April, it went up quite markedly. So you'll get that paper, I think, soon. But we've gone up on that, so that's really good in such a short space of time. And then obviously disability work that we've been doing, we've got the words are going out of my head, the increases, which is really positive to see. Some of the highlights, as I said, we've scored higher this time, which is great on most things. So people are enjoying coming to work with their team has increased. Being enthusiastic about their job is brilliant to see. The opportunities to show initiative, everything has gone up, and it's really great to see. Next slide. Sorry. And then these are some of the areas that we think we probably would need to develop on. So people think about leading the trust, we've gone down a little bit on that, which is great, but we still want it lower. We'd like more people to not worry about that. Agreed, a friend, if they need the treatment, I will be happy. With the care, we've reduced again, but on the pulse, we've gone back up. The bit of the seesaw, maybe you've got to remember this was last year, wasn't it? September through November, and of course it was April, so things have obviously got through, or things have changed, which is great. And there's some things to sort of note. So as it says there, theatres, critical care, daycase all showed improvements, which was brilliant, as did specialist medicine, surgery, digestive and finance also improved in their scores, which is. Areas which have a decline, radiology and children's. And there, one that I'm really proud of is estates and facilities did brilliant. They scored really well, scored higher than the trust average. Estates on all but one indicator, and facilities scored really high on real estate and health and the RAP, which was brilliant. And we're hoping this year we're going to take that even further out of the man.
We are, yeah. I'm proud of that.
So that's very positive, I think, isn't it, in the longer term position, yeah, good.
Yeah, definitely.
So there will be a detailed action plan coming to board. I believe it's on the 12th of June, so we'll go through all of this and see, we'll get a detailed overview of the plans for the next 12 months and what areas of focus on the staff survey results. That will go hand in hand with people promise work, which we just have funding to go for about 12 months, so the two will go hand in hand alongside the OD work. But just to pick out a few areas that we've sort of would like to focus on, specifically within the OD team. So boys, we all know Pride Line, we try our best, don't we? And we're really struggle with boys, so we're really keen to focus on boys. Recognition is really key, obviously, to tackle them like they are recognised in the world when we come to work every day. So I'm actually picking out a few. There's obviously lots of other things that are going on, flexibility, stability. There's all sorts that are feeding into this. but they're the areas of priority, and as I say, a detailed action plan will be coming on the 12th of June.
Thank you very much.
And then just the next step, so we have produced a manager's guide, which is on 5, where managers can have a look about what the staff survey results with me and my team, give them sort of a tool to be proactive about how they can plan what they're going to do. We've just produced the top 5, actually the top 5, I don't think I would call it top takeaways. But again, that was communicated out and that has gone on 5 as well, for people to look at, and this is where we're going to revisit that. The action plan, that's just being finalised. CSUs, they're doing their action plans and quarterly updates on progress. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for the slides were great, really helpful information beforehand, colleagues were able to read that, so absolutely brilliant. And what a good presentation, took us right to the point, so perfect, thank you, thank you. The purpose, of course, is to raise our knowledge in here and to have the opportunity to talk through anything that might arise in terms of themes or next steps. So I'll open up for discussion. Karen, shall I start with you, please, as Chair of the Academy, of course.
Thank you. I think it's really great to see the difference that all of the activities are making. So, you know, the outstanding programmes, when you really focus on something, you see the difference. And Mark, congratulations on estates and facilities, because it was an area last year that we focused on through the Academy, and the improvements are there to see. So that's fantastic. There's a bit of a paradox for me in the results though. So when you look at civility and respect, it's at 70.7% believe the trust and its people are understanding and kind. But then there's 20.3% of people that say that they've experienced harassment, bullying or abuse from another colleague. And it is lower than the average in the NHS is 20%. And last year it was 18.6, so it's gone up slightly. And I can't work out whether that's because people are really focused on civility and respect and you're bringing out acceptable and unacceptable behaviours, and that could account for that increase overall. But what I'm really interested in, because then when you look at your areas that are detracted, there are areas around speaking up, and we, Max and I, speak a lot about freedom to speak up and other things. So there's something to crack in those kind of metrics. What I'm really interested in is what came out of the org level action plan focus groups. What was the priority for people? What did they say was the priority areas to address through those action plans?
The slide that I just showed you, I can't remember what it said on it. It was definitely, you're totally right, and yes, about voice and how we help people use that voice. So quite rightly with the instances of incivility, and I think it was bullying and harassment and quite that we wouldn't want to see, but I think we said as a team, the more people who are able to speak up, and we think there is going to be a spike. So it is that double-edged sword, isn't it? It's like, actually, that's really great that people are doing it, but oh, actually, numbers are going up. So it's how we balance that. So definitely voice and keeping on with the civility work. I'm going to be really quite cheeky here. But you know, when you said about the trust, and this is one thing I don't understand, and maybe it's something we can look at, is what is the trust? Because for me, it's Carly, it's Max, it's Matt. Every single person is the trust. But when you speak with staff, it's like the trust is this mythical place in the sky, and it's how do we help people see that? And then, I don't know, if we crack that, can we help everybody see that we all have that role?
Yeah, it's called othering. So people go, I'm really great and my performance is brilliant, but yours isn't. It's just natural that's what people do. But there's ways to crack it, and I'll happily talk to you outside of you. There is the increase in April points is great. Again, it's just showing a good trajectory overall. And there are ways to increase your response rate. So huge, loud and proud campaigns about response rate, not about how to fill in a survey. If you give people time out to focus on filling it in, they'll do it because they're probably struggling to find time. And then there's a sort of, if you set up a focused area with some laptops or iPads in it, just more generally, but again, Carly, I'll happily speak to you about some of the things that I've seen work for us.
We've just got 8 iPads. which we're going to use.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was one thing. And I wanted specifically to use with the states and services. We've got iPads, which is great, but we want to go out. And it is, I see that as a collective, you know, it's not just the OD team that.
Absolutely.
The staff, we should, it's a collective, isn't it? We should all be encouraging people to do it. I think it's a journey. Yeah. We will get.
You've got the views of 2,365 people. That is brilliant. Obviously, there's more to do, but that 2,365 is really representative.
Great. Thank you, Penny. Thank you for your attention to this as well. It's really helpful. Yeah. Now, was it on this point? So
It absolutely was, yeah. So Karen's referenced the Culture and Leadership Programme, the national one, and I think, you know, everyone will appreciate, I am so restless in this area for us to just go further and be better, and because I know that we can. And I think we've demonstrated that, you know, against the national context where other places that we would have looked to as really kind of flagship organisations have had a wobble and things have gone on because of the kind of challenges that we've all been facing. So I think to do as well as we have has been fantastic, and it's testimony to the approaches that we've taken, the investment that we've made in the team, the thrive, everything kind of comes together. But ultimately, it has to touch everybody, and we could, you know, we could get so much further. So I think that will help us, and there's a paper coming to exec team next week, and Kat's coming to present that, and I'm pretty confident my exec colleagues will support that as an initiative. So that's really, really good. But the voice thing is, it's still just not right, is it? So you referenced, you know, Thrive Live. We had a great conversation with staff and colleagues from the TNR perspective. You know, these are people who are very pathetic. They go across the organisation, they see an awful lot. And some of the stuff they were talking about is, for me, I would always believe that this is a reflection on the leadership of the areas. So, you know, I've spoken about the Thrive Conference. The theme of the Thrive Conference this year is the leader in everybody. Because if you believe that the leadership is the trust and not the people who are in the trust, then it's easy to defer to that othering thing. It's somebody else's responsibility. So that's why we kind of have taken that approach to say that everybody has a responsibility to lead and model those behaviours and those values and to call out bad behaviour. I just want to, the estates and facilities stuff is fantastic. So the hotspots, you know, we could have over time looked at some of our hotspots. We know, you know, theatres previously would have been a hotspot. Pharmacy is a hotspot. We're on with that. Estates and facilities has been a hotspot. We're managing to turn that around. But guess what? Unusually, finance is a hotspot.
Yeah.
I just want to call out Matthew because he's a very modest and humble guy. But actually, the improvements in the finance directorate have been phenomenal. And we started this conversation when I first arrived, Matthew, about what is it about your staff survey results? Why is that? And we've been working. Matthew has a team on this, and it's the second most improved finance team in the country. Is that not right?
Yeah.
And he wouldn't shout about it, so I'm going to shout about it for him. And actually, the one that is the first, all credit to them, but it's a tiny organisation with a very small turnover. It's not a kind of a counterpart of ours in terms of the reference point that we would benchmark. Again, say something, Matthew. You really should.
No, we are really proud of it actually, and we're making a push of it. It's all down to the work we've all been doing as a team. You know, a lot of OD work. In fact, thank you to Debbie. A couple of weeks, was it last week? We've all been Myers-Briggs now as a senior team. We're all extroverted lunatics. But you know, it's just been a big collaborative approach to try to come together as a team and to think about how we can work differently, establish an ambition statement, how do we make Bradford a great place to work, and it is now bearing fruit. Yes, I'm under no illusions, still a long way to go, of course, but we're on a journey and we're really pleased with the results and being encouraged to submit applications for teams of the month, so whoever's on the panel, just know that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. and thanks, Mel, you're quite right to call it out. I rather like the idea that we might seek to try and learn from those areas that are apparently improving. You know, I like that idea, the very point you that there, Matthew, you know, no sitting on laurels and what more can we do, keep it going. Yeah, this conversation is great. This is making real the brilliant trust values we've got into. We care, we value people, we are one team. That's it. And this is really making that real. So I'm delighted to see the attention that's being given. Bring in Karen, please. Karen, go ahead.
Thanks, 2 points. First around the cultural leadership stuff. So the reason Sarah Hollins hasn't been in person at board today or last time is because it's the days of the National MAT NEO Cultural Leadership Programme, of which we're in the first wave of. Which is really positive, and I know the team are getting a lot out of it. And there's actually been a step change in how they're doing that, because before it used to just be maternity, but they've made it into a quadrumvirate, I can't say that word properly, where you've got neonates involved there as well now. So that's in line with the maternity plan that we're going to talk about later. So that's the first point. The second point is I'm going to channel Sue Franklin, because if Sue Franklin was sat here, she'd have her head in her hands and she'd say, Karen, that's not quite right about speaking up. And so the point I want to make is this, I might be othering now. I'm just, it's not my answer, othering. So the speak up metric that we've not done as well or dropped down on isn't just about bringing the speak up, it's about the civility, it's about feeling confident to speak to your manager. So I just need to stress it, and actually Sue's asked me to stress to all of us that, you know, this is about each and every one of us, and it's not just about the Queen Speak Up Guardian and department. Did I over?
No, not at all, but it's not, this wasn't a criticism of Queen Speak Up itself, but obviously those speaking out metrics. I mean, it's still 2022, 72.6, so although it's dropped, it is high. That people would feel secure raising concerns about unsafe clinical practice particularly, but it's just, there is something to just unpick that I think would take the trust to a different one.
I think it's massive. If you give people that confidence to stop or hold something, or actually stop something in the corridor if they've been spoken to really,
yeah,
okay. But giving people those skills, but then helping people realise how they come across, and it's all interlinked, isn't it? It's massive. We'll get there. Maybe.
You will. Definitely.
We all want to get there, don't we? That's the thing. So thank you, Debbie. Thank you, please.
Yeah, so I think the other thing that I wanted to mention was that actually this is a 1 year sort of focus on the staff survey and the improved results. I think this is as a result of the work we've been doing for some years now in terms of improving culture overall across the trust. And this is also seeing the actual fruits of our hard work that's come from that. And I think the other thing to note in terms of actually these services that are most improved, they've not just focused on getting the results improved, they've focused on actually staff experience and how does it feel to work here, how do we make it, make it a good place to work for you, rather than focusing on how do we get better staff results. And by doing that, this is a byproduct of that hard work that's been put in, and sort of discussions, and really looked at staff experience and how staff feel about working here, and how we make their working lives more easier and actually more productive for them in terms of what they feel they can contribute. I think one sort of stat that I would highlight is 73.9% in that us as a trust respect them as individuals, against the national average of 69.3, and that 2021 sort of 69.6%. And I think that's really important that we actually respect individuals, and actually seeing a step change in that is a really positive for us as a trust. And I think to me, it's demonstrating that civility at work that we're doing, and the work we're doing through Thrive is starting to actually embed across the organisation, and is starting to see results from that.
Just read that metric out again.
So
74%.
So 73.9% think that us as an organisation respect individual differences. And the national average is 69.3. Yes. And in 2021, we were 69.6%. We scored on that. So it's a significant step up in terms of the change that we've had, positive change that we've had.
I want to make sure I have the exactly right metric there. That is strong, actually, isn't it? Yeah, respecting individual differences. Please, yeah.
So when we talked about measuring organisational culture maps, this is a really great example of that culture driving engagement. So seeing increased engagement overall, and the positive business outcomes is really important, because in any other world, it's about the business, but it's about patients. So in Branson's world, he would talk about happy people, happy customers. Happy people here are happy patients. So the outcomes for patients is really important, and we mustn't forget that when we're talking about engagement, because actually that engagement is leading to better outcomes for patients overall.
Yeah, I always felt the national messages endorsed that. The initial national messages on the pandemic were about we need to look after our own people in order to provide best services we can. So absolutely right. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Alta, please do. Julie, I know you're waiting as well. Yeah.
So just a very quick point. I mean, if I'm looking for an indicator or a benchmark that's showing me why we're engaging people, I think it's vital to come back and try and improve the number of people that participate in our survey back, because from experience in other sectors, people sometimes don't engage in staff surveys because they don't feel empowered. They don't think it will make a difference. So when all the other factors that come together, as soon as that figure goes up, moves the next time around, we know we're getting that bit right. And just to reinforce, if you just look at a triangle, burnout, retention, staff engagement, empowerment leads directly into patient experience, and that's what we're ultimately trying to deliver. And having that engagement indicator is a good measure.
We've been having these conversations about having them particularly around pulse. So the quarterly pulse, which is just closed, I think in January we had something like 69. Yeah, in terms of NHS England, they weren't able to even account for those figures because we just didn't have enough numbers. We worked really hard and we had 284 responses this time, which again doesn't sound in the grand concept of how many staff we have, but yeah, that took a lot of effort. The other thing is it's really important, and we're keen to understand, and people will come in, I believe next week, but in terms of people pulse results, it's really important that our staff, if they're being asked how they feel at work, that they understand what we're doing with that, because then it's, well, here's the results. What does that mean? So I think that's really key, and what are the next steps that we need to develop. I think we're good at it, but we could possibly be even better, couldn't we? So we're just keen to understand, and if anybody's got any ideas or how we could share that, we're all ears, we're open.
Yeah, your point's been well received, Alta. Thank you for raising that. We're dealing with just over a third of our staff, the responses. But Debbie quite rightly pointed out to us that it's still 2,500 people who work here. So you're quite right to raise that. Very good point. Thank you. Julie, Fane, did you want to say much on this?
Just a couple of points.
Mel raised my point. It was a shout out to Matthew to say well done. We celebrated it in the F&P Academy, but Mel's already said, great to see how you see those improvements and the work that's being done by the team coming through in the results. So, but well done to everybody. Results really encouraging.
Thank you, Julie. That's great. That's helpful. Yeah, we do endorse the work being done with the finance team. Thank you. And Fane, yeah, please.
So just to touch upon the point that I've raised around response rates, and I think that's a really valid point. We do need to look at, actually there's a 10% drop. How do we get more staff to engage with the staff survey? And Karen talked about different ways of engaging people. But I think just to put context to it, the 2021 staff survey saw a significant increase from the previous year in terms of participation. So this is not out of sync with what we've had in previous years in terms of response rates. So 37% response rate isn't where we want it to be, but it's not too dissimilar to where the participation rates were in 2019, 18, etc. So it's a similar number of people that are contributing in terms of percentage of the workforce. We still do need to do more work to make sure we can get more staff to contribute and actually take part. Some of that is actually feeding back on what we're saying, etc. And I think the other thing to really bear in mind is the context of when this staff survey took place. So it was from September to November 2022. During that period, there was a significant sort of industry relations activity around balancing of staff, talks of strikes, etc. So, and I think that backdrop is really important in terms of just highlighting how well we've done in terms of the results as a context, and the climate was quite a challenged position.
Well said, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Now, the spirit of that Woodward team and people, we do have a graduate management trainee with us, Eleanor. And Eleanor, you just raise your hand there. So, would you like to have the last word on what your perspective?
Well, I just wanted to share an observation that I've had from other NHS organisations, which was a block of people doing the staff survey, which is that they wrongfully thought that it could be traced back to them because it's a unique link sent out to everybody. And yeah, in my organisation, there's like a big campaign about how that's not true when it is really anonymous. So I just wasn't sure if you guys have met that as well here, and yeah, if that would be kind of a focus for getting people to fill it out.
That's a great point. That's a great. Is that a familiar word, perhaps?
Yes.
Okay.
And do you know what? We've had videos, we've got policy health to talk to staff. We've explained the process of how even they don't know because it's computer generated. But there is definitely a blocker. And if any trust can find that magic formula to break that, they're onto a winner because they don't hear it. It's how we can help them. Still trying.
That's a great point to bring this together. Thank you, Dominic. There is no hidden agenda. How do we make sure we get that message across? Yes, yeah, the genuine reasons. Well, so hopefully, colleagues, you've seen, and our team that do this daily, there's a genuine desire on our parts to learn from this, to learn from our people, and to pick up on those areas that we can improve, definitely, and indeed learn from those areas that they've improved. So that's a key message. Are we content? Are we well briefed? Do we appreciate the work that our people, colleagues are doing? Yeah, great stuff. Okay, we're well briefed. Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, Carly, Debbie, that was great. Yeah, great input. Thanks. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I think, will we help by a top up there, some hot water and that sort of thing? So shall we do 5 minutes now? Yeah? 5, 6, 7 minutes. We'll just take a quick leg stretch, get a drink, and